Welcome back to episode 213 of Tall Boy Radio. And as we always say, who knows where it goes when the beer flows? Well, it's flowing to a place that's 8 hours away if you're turning back your clock and following time zones. That's right, we're over to somewhere in the far west of Canada. But before we get to our guest, let's say hello to Gaza.
Evening all, evening the world. Yeah, looking forward to this. I say it sort of most times when we have a guest on. It's fantastic just to sort of speak to them about their experiences and get them on. And even better when it's a first timer, somebody that we haven't had on previously. And it's always great that we get sort of international guests on. So really looking forward to this. And actually talking first up potentially about a topic that actually isn't too far from home. But there's a little teaser for you. So I'll leave that there for you.
Indeed, indeed. Travelling far, far, far away to hear about a place that is very close to our home. So, without further ado, let's introduce our guest for this week. Trevor, did you want to say hello and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hello, everybody. I'm Trevor Caswell from Kamloops, BC, Canada. So, yeah, over on the west coast, I guess if we need to relate it to Vancouver, it's about 4 hours east of Vancouver. And yeah, so when you guys got in touch, I've listened to some podcasts, but I never got to see that opening video before. You guys are really rubbing it in with the beer drinking, and I've got a coffee going. So if I disappear for a few minutes, I've just gone downstairs.
That's fine.
Yeah, we are just a few hours ahead of you though. So yeah, it's sort of coming up to sort of 8:10. Well, 8:10 in the evening here. So we're a little bit ahead of you. So we'll let you off on that one.
Is that your first beer of the day?
Second beer of the day.
I don't believe you. It's possible.
Scout's honour.
Okay. So the reason why we invited Trevor on is we like to hear about something different each week, and certainly we enjoy music, and we both have quite eclectic and very different tastes in music as well. However, it was highlighted to me by my brother, who got in contact and said he'd heard a song called "The Old Man of Mow," and the guy who sang it was not local to us. Mow Cop, if you don't know, is obviously very close to us. It's a small town on a rather steep hillside, isn't it? Made famous by the folly or castle at the top. However, Trevor recorded a song called "The Old Man of Mow," which actually, first before I get to you, Trevor, do you know what the Old Man of Mow is, Gaza?
No, are you gonna tell me, Trevor? Are you gonna tell me?
Well, go on,
sure.
Trevor.
Yeah, well, it's a rock formation up there on the hill, and if you look at it by just the right angle, it looks like a man.
There you go. So I suppose is that, excuse me, Trevor, there's another place like the Winking Man on the way to Leek, where there's a certain rock formation. It looks like the sort of side of a face, and when you drive up to it, it looks like the eyes open, and then you pass it, it looks like the eye closes, and then as you carry on, it opens again. So it looks like it winks depending on where you sort of drive past. So maybe a bit like that.
A little. This is like a stack of rocks that have been stacked together that look like, if it's a silhouette of a man.
Okay.
You never heard of it, have you?
No.
No, neither have I.
No, genuinely.
So when we talk about Mow Cop, we think about the castle, and that is it, don't we?
And I've been to Mow Cop, I won't say hundreds of times, but like multiple tens of times in my lifetime, and I've never actually heard of that, no.
No. So, Trevor, why don't you tell us, why don't you educate us? Like, how did you find out about it?
Well, I found out about it from, can you see it? I got it the wrong way. There we go. The book there.
Yeah.
Old Man of Mow, Alan Garner and Roger Hill. Roger Hill, I think, took the photographs. And my mom got it for me when I was a kid at just like it wasn't a garage sale, but, a flea market type sort of thing. I don't know why she thought I would maybe like it. And I sort of took thought it was kind of neat. It seemed like, the two kids throughout the story, they're kind of running through the neighborhood, and who's this old man of Mow? And I grew up in Lower Nicola, which is outside of Merritt, which is about an hour away from where I live now. So I grew up in a little village, and we had a little Candy Mountain. And, just you run through the neighborhood sort of in this sort of similar fashion. So I don't know, like, is that why this sort of, these kids made sense to me?
Yeah.
And then the English countryside is sort of, magical to us over here.
You see, that's strange because, like, I can imagine the Canadian countryside being absolutely phenomenal to us. So it's strange, isn't it, in different perceptions?
Yeah.
And um, I'm just curious. So you say your mum sort of picked up that book. Did she have a particular interest in, I don't know, like UK history or follies or castles, or was it just something that she saw and just picked up randomly?
No, probably more uh, that I had a sort of interest in England and that sort of thing.
Right.
When a bunch of my great grandparents, the old what are the London Illustrated News, I don't know if you know, they had a bunch of those, and I was really taken by that sort of thing, right? And
Right.
so, she probably just put those two together, I suppose.
Okay.
It's fascinating.
It
It
is.
is
Yeah.
fascinating.
Yeah.
And like you say about you being fascinated by the British countryside, and Gaz says about us being fascinated with the Canadian. My dad was in Canada last year, and he shared some pictures with me. Phenomenal, absolutely beautiful country.
Yeah.
And although I will say, in terms of the local area, it is one of the more significant pieces of just anything significant around us. I would suggest. You know what I mean?
Oh,
There's
yeah.
Morton Hall, and that's it, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of sort of, I suppose, geological formations or stuff like that, rock faces, follies, castles, there aren't significantly. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think if you drive half an hour, 40 minutes away, yeah, there's a few, but certainly within 10-15 minute drive, I can't I can't think of any others really. And actually, it's quite striking because I suppose you've got a place called the Cloud, which is out towards a place called Congleton, which is like a rock face, and that's quite notorious, but I suppose Mow Cop, it sort of dominates the landscape.
Mm.
So when you do look at it from the local surrounding villages, so Redheath, Church Lawton, Alsager, and it literally is, you can see it, can't you? And it is the most dominant feature in the landscape. So
Mm.
I can understand why it would draw some people towards it and it be noticed. I mean, obviously, it's ideal where it's placed to be a castle, and if you are going to defend it from somebody back in the day in the history of it, it's perfect 'cause it's on top of a hill, But yeah, it absolutely is dominant in the local landscape.
Yeah, it is, but I don't know how many people outside of Staffordshire and Cheshire have necessarily heard of it. So to find someone in Canada
Yeah.
singing about it, it's mind blowing. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the song, how it came to be, the writing process, and just the style of music and what you were inspired by when you wrote that song?
Well, I mean, stylistically, it's pretty Beatley, that's for sure. The sort of fairground sort of sound to it. Um, I did like a little version of it, probably about uh, early '90s, and I've got that on a reel-to-reel tape somewhere, but I don't have a reel player.
Right.
And then, sort of over the years, I had been writing, as you're writing songs, just ones that didn't really fit, maybe with albums or whatever that I was working on at the time. I sort of put them off to the side, and then eventually collected them all in sort of a package. And so that was one of the ones that kind of wasn't really fitting anywhere else, but it fit in on. It's not really an album of scraps, but different.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
it wouldn't have been out of place, I would say, on the Beatles' The Magical Mystery Tour album, something like that. It's
yeah, yeah.
that sort of time period
Like like
music.
like a this is the wrong phrase, like a canticle, like a tale, like a that type of sort of um slightly offbeat harmonic sort of rhythm as such, rather than it. I understand what I'm trying to say, but you guys probably got, but more of a canticle, like a tale, I suppose.
I know what you're saying.
If that makes sense.
It is a tale. It is a tale. And so it's on an album called, and I apologize if I pronounce this wrong, Mr. Poirier. Is that
Mr.
correct?
Poirier, yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to tell us about that album and just the name and the process?
Yeah. So, like I said, it was just songs that I liked, but didn't fit into the more just sort of straight acoustic folk I was doing
Yeah.
prior. And Mr. Poirier itself was a pretty early song. It's a just a name I picked up from that lived in the area. The song doesn't have anything to do with him, but you use the name.
Does he know you use the name though? That's the question. Does he know?
I don't think so.
I'm just thinking like royalties and all of that coming in.
There's lots of Poiriers around.
All right.
And so I sort of organized the album into a sort of vague, sort of um, storyline or not, or plot line
Yeah.
of sort of the loss and regaining of hope. And when you find the old man of Mao, that was sort of a that was on the good side of things, on the upswing, looking at things from a different angle, and you see um, you see some things that you're looking for.
Okay.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, it is interesting. I must admit, I did like the way that you worked it in, and actually, probably maybe took it a little bit in the story from the two boys that you in your book. But it certainly added something to me. Added a little bit of mystery. I certainly enjoyed hearing the song. I certainly enjoyed hearing the album as well. It's very, very different to anything else that maybe I'd listen to. Although I have to say, I do love the Beatles.
Love the yeah. Look, I think Adam saying he loves the Beatles is probably a little bit of an understatement. I think other than Morrissey, who you might know or don't know, the Beatles is probably one of Adam's most loved sort of groups, I suppose, and talks about them all the time. So, for him to say it's in that Beatles-esque sort of style is quite a compliment. I'll be absolutely honest with you, which is credit to yourself, Trevor.
Yeah,
Obviously,
thanks. Yeah, oh yeah.
Well, I'd be interested then to hear about how you got into music and some of the. I mean, I think when I've listened to your stuff, certainly the folky stuff, I could hear the Beatles, and I can hear a little bit of Bob Dylan in there as well. So I wasn't surprised to read on your website that those were two people or two musically minded folks who had inspired you over the years. So I'll be interested to hear what got you started, where you learned to play instruments, etc., and just a few things like that.
Um, well, my folks had uh, an amazing record collection. Like and it spanned, from everything I listed, from Sinatra to Hendrix, kind of,
yeah,
and all steps in between. And of course, they were the '60s when they grew up, right? So, as far as something things like the Beatles and the Beach Boys and the Who, you're listening to that stuff from the time you're born. So it just I might something might go clunky here on me. Sorry, I don't know if you can still see me.
Yeah, we can
yeah,
see
yeah.
we can
You can
see you
still see,
fine.
yeah, see and hear. That's all good.
Sorry, my computer's just doing something funny. Um, and yeah, so they're big music fans. You're listening to music all the time, and just you see the neighborhood musician. I remember seeing John Penoyer on stage when I was in grade 8. He did a little thing at the high school, and I just, wow, that's awesome, right? So you save up your summer money, buy a guitar, and a friend of my dad teaches me a few chords, and you sort of just keep going from there.
Wow. In terms of sort of the inspiration for your music and your songwriting and everything else, is it because I'm not, I love music and I've got a widely eclectic sort of love of music as such. And as you said, anything from Guns N' Roses to ABBA to the Beatles to whoever, just different ranges, different styles. I could never ever see myself writing a song because I don't think I'm creative enough. So, what's your inspiration for your stories? Is it just literally sort of walking around your local village, your local
Mm.
town, and seeing somebody or seeing something, thinking, "Oh, that sparks like a oh that sounds pretty cool," or "That looks pretty cool," or and then you delve into a little bit of the research, make sure you get your facts right, and then what comes first? Is it the lyrics? Is it the music? How does that work?
Well, it's sort of different. I mean, so and it sort of depends maybe on the style I'm writing it. So I used to tour around as a lot, just solo acoustic.
Right.
So writing in that vein and sort of more topical songs, something in the news, of world events are really gonna sort of inspire um, what you write. And then you sort of start strumming out the chords, and the melody comes to you, and you've got those first words that you really want to plug in there that first came to your head.
Yeah.
Then you sort of keep going and plug in the rest as you go along. A more popular tune might be a bit different. I was a big, huge Prince fan as well,
Right.
and I have a song called "Wendy M," which is more like a tribute to Wendy Melvoin, his guitarist in the Revolution. And that sort of, when Prince passed away, I just started sort of playing more with those sounds again that I grew up with, and I don't really tour around anymore, so I can record in any style I want to. I don't have to stick to my solo acoustic stuff,
Right.
and that was probably more of a case with an idea, but music really came first on that particular tune.
Right.
So it all changes depending on the song.
So at what point, I mean, did you sort of say, right, music is the thing I want to do? Was it always something you felt as though you wanted to do? Was there another? Was there something that you did prior to music, which then sort of music took over, or at what point were you like, no, this is something I really, really want to do, and I feel as though I can make a sort of living out of it as such?
Well, right when you start, you save up your summer jobs and get your guitar,
Yeah,
and uh, and and then take it serious. Right from that point on, you're like, I mean, this is what you
right,
love to do, how you express yourself, and
okay,
just what makes you happy, right?
Yeah, I think that's important with music. I think it's something about the song that probably predates maybe even language. I think just that
Mm.
rhythmic nature, that before we can communicate with each other,
yeah,
maybe as cavemen, I do think, there's music and rhythm that was in there somewhere along the way. And obviously we developed that. And it is a way of speaking to the heart, isn't it, sometimes? And like you say, stuff like the Beatles, I love the Beatles, and some of their music is very, very clever. Like guy says, I love Morrissey because lyrically, I think he's very witty and he's very clever. And I can take something from the song that somebody else could listen to and take something completely different.
yeah.
What message, what's important to you about music? What sort of thing grips you?
I think the sort of the story, like you said, it's nice when it's sort of a universal, um, something that speaks to I might be here and I can talk about something, but you guys are going to get it or take something from it. That's definitely where I started. Really the communication and the sort of folk stuff.
Yeah.
I really gravitated towards that. And there's nothing, catchy melodies.
Yeah.
Nice. It's nice to tap your foot and
100%.
And without being, I mean, I'm not musical at all. I don't play any instruments, but music is very
I
emotive.
can confirm that it's not.
I could probably play a triangle every night, just like give me a nod, and you're like, ding, But I mean, music's very emotive, isn't it? It manifests itself, and people listen to it. And as you said, Ad, you can get two different people listening to the same song, and they will pick out different bits of the lyrics that are particularly pertinent to them, and it is very emotive. So if you can write something that I suppose different people at different times can take different things away from, then that's like the A game, isn't it? That's like your home run type thing. That's what you're after. It's creating those feelings, I suppose. And you know, I'm a complete novice at it, having never done it, but I can imagine it's that feeling of stirring an emotion in somebody else that's listening to something that you've created would be like, I mean, that for me, I mean, that sounds like phenomenal, does it? And it sounds amazing.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think that's a little bit what we try and do with the podcast. Mostly we fail, but we do try.
Oh, people take a lot from the podcast, not necessarily what we want, but that's the way it goes.
That's it. We make people laugh unintentionally.
those Smith songs are probably a really good example of
Yeah,
people interpreting them all sorts of different ways, right?
Oh, yeah, 100%. Yeah,
it's strange
100%.
because the Smiths and Morrissey, I'm not a massive fan. I think he's incredibly morose and downbeat and this, that, and the other. Whereas Adam is like, he's like up there with Hendrix and whoever is a songwriter and a lyricist. And so it's strange that we can, I suppose Adam has a greater love and appreciation for music than I do. And our tastes are very eclectic, both of us really. Um, where so Adam perceives sort of, Morrissey in one way, and I perceive him in just something completely different. So from Morrissey's point of view, he's like, great, because I've got these two people that perceive me in two completely different ways.
Mm.
And that's what you want, isn't it? It's just to stir those emotions.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. What kind of do you get much feedback from people who listen to you? Where? I mean, obviously, first of all, probably quite peculiar that a small podcast from the north of England has reached out to you. But do you hear much from other people listening to your music? And what's the kind of stuff that people say?
Yeah, that's funny. Just when there's just seems to there's random ones like this, just all of a sudden, that will come out of nowhere. That's pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
Or
Pretty
places
cool,
that
yeah.
places that I've played uh, that want to get you back, and continue. They drop you a line every couple of years, and you got to get back here. Um, and one of my newer projects was an album called "Soundtrack to an Unmade Western," which is
Mhm.
essentially what it is. Although I've got the kind of script in my head, but um, and for some reason it seems to be popular in Brazil.
Right, okay.
Okay.
So you're gonna make the Western in Brazil then? Okay, I get it,
Yeah.
completely get it. All you need to do, well, to be fair, we've got a couple of sort of, directors and various other things, so, we can try and hook you up. I mean, I don't know whether
Yeah.
they film in Brazil or not, but
Florida.
Well, yeah,
maybe Florida, yeah.
right
Yeah.
here in Kamloops. Kamloops is sort of part of a desert,
Right.
so it looks, sort of like the Northern California you'd see in Western movies or something, right? So
Okay.
film it right here.
Yeah, that'd be ideal. That'd be ideal for a Western.
Yep.
Just that you mentions there about performing on stage and people asking you to come back. Now, I love going to concerts. I love going to gigs and seeing people perform. I'd love to know from your perspective what it's like being on stage and getting the feedback from a crowd and how that feels. And for a start, the thing that would ever put me off doing it is the nerves. Do you get
Yeah.
nervous before you go on?
Yeah, for sure. I know I would now. It's been I don't play live really. So and I played in a Beatles tribute band
Okay.
in the sort of early '90s, and with that same group of guys, we had another band. Um, so going to solo acoustic was definitely nerve wracking. The first times you're going on stage by yourself, that's a whole different
Yeah.
um, feeling, right? And then so a great crowd. It has to be a two-way thing.
Yeah.
You as the performer put that energy out, and if you don't get it back, it can be tough. And that's where, as a solo performer, if it's sort of not a great night, it can take a lot of energy out. If you're with your band, you can get it from your buddies beside you, right, and keep the
Sure.
energy up.
Sure.
So those that's just the difference between performing in those different styles. But I mean, when the crowd's with you, it's the best, right?
So we have a sort of phrase in the UK. Various musicians and they go to working men clubs and pubs and clubs and all the way up to sort of arenas and stadiums and so on and so forth. So we always have a phrase, and it's like, "Oh, I've played to one man and his dog," sort of thing. So you
Yeah.
see these people trying to make a living, and they rock up into a pub or a club or a saloon or whatever it is that is the sort of Canadian equivalent, and you walk up and you're like, really, like this is it, and you've got like, no disrespect to people who are probably on slightly older than you would want them to be. Probably looking at them don't really like your music. You look around, you think, crikey, there's no one else in. And you start strumming away, and then it's like, wow, okay, I'm singing to that wall in front of me because there's nobody watching me. So, is that something you've ever sort of had yourself? Have you been fortunate enough to sort of never have that? Because there's a couple of people I know that happens all the time, sort of thing.
Oh yeah, that definitely happens. Um, just
So what's the worst one
gotta
you've
get
ever?
through
Come on,
it.
come on, tell the story. What's the worst place in terms of sort of you've been booked for a venue and you've been booked to go and play? I'll say solo because obviously you said that there at times could be the worst because you've got no bandmates to sort of fall back on. So what's the worst experience you've had on stage then in terms of you playing solo and thinking, God, this is going bad?
I mean, I played one place one time that was just sort of a more just extremely. I found it funny because they booked a lot of music, but you were extremely background music while people were eating,
Right.
and and probably sort of topical, serious folk music wasn't the best fit. If I was, probably playing some covers, um, popular covers
Yeah.
would have been a better fit for the venue. So you play one like that, and it's it's tough if you sing a song about 9/11. Well, they're just trying to enjoy their dinner.
Yeah, so a bit of lounge music, covers might be great, but yeah, you
Yeah, it's just yeah, it just doesn't jive.
Yeah.
Nobody's wrong. It's not working out.
No,
It's nobody's fault. It's just the way it is.
they're just not ready for it. They're just not ready for it.
Absolutely. So okay, so the flip side then is have you ever been to somewhere where in a way you felt as though, oh crikey, this possibly isn't going to work, but actually then you start to play and the energy of the crowd then sort of got to you and you felt as though you turned it around, but you went, actually that went a little better than I perhaps thought it was going to right at the start.
Yeah, that's definitely happened. I can't think of a specific one where it's turned around, but I know that it has, where it's just like more if you're doing more the cafe sort of thing, that can sort of happen.
Right.
People are kind of visiting, and then they perk up and start paying attention and get into it.
Right.
There's a little town here called Christina Lake, and I've played there a few times. They really seem to get me for some reason. They get the tiny little jokes in the songs, and it's just one of those places that's always worked for me, and it's just random, right? But it's good.
But it works.
Yeah, for sure.
That's cool. So obviously, so you said you were in a Beatles cover band, which was called Revolution 9, unless I'm mistaken.
Correct.
Yeah.
You see, Adam's the one that does the research. You see, always rely on Beans.
Yeah. I mean, I'm very familiar with that particular song off the White Album.
Yep.
Yeah, as it's affectionately called. Was that the kind of music is that the era of the music that you played from the Beatles, or did you do the full shebang?
Oh, we did everything. Yeah, right from early. So it's always sort of start off or go sort of chronologically in a show. Always start off early for sure.
Oh, cool. And were you John, Paul, Ringo?
Well, so that's where I don't know, fell down as a tribute band. We weren't strict. We didn't. Once did we ever do a sort of costume change, sort of thing, and we weren't strict about whoever could sing that particular song best sang the song.
He's definitely Paul.
You think?
Yeah, he's definitely Paul, 100%.
I don't play bass, so I play bass, but I didn't play bass in the band.
Yeah, it'd have to really be George or John.
Yeah, go for John.
Yeah. The Beatles. No, it was a terrible Scouse accent. I did.
That was good. Well, so that brings me to my question for you guys: was where you're at? Who do you cheer for? Liverpool or Manchester?
Ooh. Wow.
Or is there somewhere closer that I don't know about?
No, Liverpool's very close. But
so I support a team from the city of Liverpool, but I actually support Everton. So I'm an Everton fan. So Liverpool to me is like a cursed word. That's just like they play red, we play in blue. That's just not happening. So I'm an Everton fan. Adam supports a football team from London, team called Arsenal. So we're sort of about 3.5 hours apart in terms of travel our football teams. And Everton was the first team that I watched live. So that was why I selected them. They were the first team. So you go watch them, you see them, that's it. You can't change your colours. That's your team through thick or thin, and it's been a lot of thin at the moment. But yeah, we suck at the moment. We're terrible.
And have for some time.
And have done for some time. Adam's on the crest of a wave at the moment because Arsenal are actually doing all right. So
yeah, we are. Arsenal did incredibly well about 20 years ago. I've been following them a little bit longer than that. And yeah, at the moment, Arsenal are playing incredibly well. In fact, if you've watched them today, they just won 6-0 away at West Ham.
Wow.
Which is sweet because my brother's a West Ham fan.
and whilst we're on about sports, obviously I'm going to support the Chicago Bears in the Super Bowl. Oh no, maybe not tonight because the Bears aren't in the Super Bowl tonight because the Bears suck as well.
Yeah.
So
the theme of the sports teams you follow, isn't it?
All right, steady on. So look, I mean, both myself and Ad, we're huge sort of NFL fans, and I suppose American sports really, but NFL is a sport that we sort of both know probably the most about. And we've done a couple of podcasts on the NFL, and we've been lucky enough to have a few people on that have sort of presented NFL shows on other podcasts, TV, and this, that, and the other. So I will be staying up a little bit later just to watch the Super Bowl. Unfortunately, Adam has I did extend the invitation for
Yeah,
Adam to
you
come
did.
over to us and have a few beers and some snacks and this, that, and then watch the Super Bowl. But oh no, I'm too tired.
I'm working in the morning.
I'm not, you see,
usually
so that's
here.
great.
So in terms of sports up there in Canada, obviously ice hockey is very big in Canada.
The Canucks. Is that are they Canadian? Are the Canucks? Is that a team from Canada?
Vancouver. Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
You see,
you're not too far away.
You
either,
see,
though.
there
Yeah,
you go. You
about
see,
4 hours away.
that's about as far as my NHL
Yeah.
knowledge goes.
Do you? There's quite a few actually in the NHL. Like you got
Toronto Maple Leafs.
yeah, the Oilers as well. Edmonton
Yeah,
Oilers.
Edmonton Oilers,
Yeah, Winnipeg have got a team as well. I think. Yeah. So did you follow the ice hockey up there?
Oh yeah. Played hockey growing up, and I mean, everyone used to play hockey growing up. Really, it's less and less. I think it's expensive.
Right.
Probably, I don't know if it's. I think its popularity amongst kids might be waning. I'm not sure.
Is that because of the growth of maybe the NFL or the NBA as such? Has that sort of taken over in Canada? Because obviously, the climate in Canada you would expect lends itself to ice hockey because it's fudging freezing a lot of the time up there. So
I don't know. NBA could be. I don't know that NFL would be affecting that as much, but basketball does happen. Basketball's a winter sport, right?
Yeah.
So same time, I think a lot of people can't afford it.
Okay.
The equipment's expensive. The ice time's expensive.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I hadn't really thought about it like that, but when you look at actually taking it up as a sport, in terms of over here, like soccer's absolutely massive. NFL's growing, but soccer's absolutely massive. But really, all you need is a football and a couple of jumpers for goal posts.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you need your football boots or whatever, and although nowadays you don't really need the shin pads, but back in the day you needed the shin pads, and that's almost about it, really. The football, and you'd have one of your mates out of 10 and say, "Oh, I've got a football. There you go, crack on." Whereas I suppose your ice hockey, everybody has to have skates, everybody has to have the pads, I suppose, and you need an area to play on it. You can't just go and play on it on a field; it needs to be frozen. I suppose.
Yeah. So you asked us about soccer. Is that something that's of interest to you?
No. I as a kid, when the Vancouver Whitecaps, they were sort of popular when I was a kid, and Pelé was a big deal, right?
Yeah.
You guys will hate that. I kind of World Cup time I pull for France.
well, I don't know, but I suppose that is it like just less than half of Canada speaks French or whatever it is? It's spoken language. I mean, obviously, is it Quebec is the main French?
Quebec, New Brunswick.
Yeah. Hey,
it was.
I won't hold that against you. It's fine.
It was Zidane that I saw. You start watching him play and some magical stuff, and so I just stuck with him. I have no real good reason other than that.
I don't have a problem with that. Like literally half the French squad have played for Arsenal at some time. We got a lot of French players.
Yeah, you did, to be fair.
Thierry Henry is a god in this household.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Anyway, back to music.
One of our famous left turns. So what I'd like to talk about with you being a musician as well. So I've tried to get hold of one of your CDs. Whenever we get someone on the podcast who produces something like that, when we've had authors on, I'll always buy one of the books. But actually trying to get hold of your CDs in the UK is incredibly, incredibly hard. Tell us about that as a musician, about streaming platforms and how that's affected you and CD sales and what have you.
CD sales are gone. If you play live, people will buy CDs live. It's sort of a little bit of memorabilia almost, from the show, I think. But I use a platform called CD Baby, and they get your stuff, so through them you're on Spotify, Apple Music,
right,
et cetera. And they would also once upon a time sort of distribute actual physical CDs as well. I don't believe they do anymore. And then with even stores like HMV, they're gone here.
Yeah.
So there's no place for physical CD sales anymore.
Yeah, it's a shame, isn't it? That's a shame. You like you say, you started off talking about your parents' record collection, and there is something very beautiful about the artwork. There's something very beautiful about holding something like that. When you
Yeah.
place that needle onto the vinyl and hearing the crackle, there's something very magical
But
about it, I think.
I remember you a number of years ago now. I mean, we're the wrong side of 50, or but I remember you sort of saying there's something magical about the sound of the record player and the sound of the music that's produced from the needle and so on. And you've got your, was it you like your 9 inch or whatever, and that's gone. And is that a shame? Does everybody want just the streaming crystal clear
Well, I think
music?
that there was, when you were putting some effort and care into it. You put your record on the platter, you put
Yes,
your needle down, and you were taking the time to do it.
you're invested in it, aren't you?
Yeah, and even with the CD, maybe slightly less, but you were still grabbing it,
Yeah,
putting it in the player, pressing play, and I think there's maybe a lack of appreciation a little bit with streaming. It's just on all the time, and
yeah.
it's easy. It's a click of the button.
And you can skip, 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 and that's the thing. Whereas on the old vinyl, it was as you said, you have to take care. You have to then remove the needle. You have to remove the LP. You have to then replace it, and so on. So there's care and there's love.
You dust off that record before you start
Yeah,
it. There was all sorts of, you were physically connected, emotionally connected to putting that on and doing it.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I do think there's something that's lost there with that, and obviously it's made a bit of a resurgence. You
Yeah.
can buy them, and the quality now is phenomenal, but you still do get that magical little bit of crackle when you play the record.
Yeah, and you'll get some retro shops and this, that, and the other, and if you scour hard enough, you can find them and you can find the places, and I'm not saying on online, but you can travel to certain places and think, oh, we'll go through. And I remember, you rifle through and you've got the draw and they're in alphabetical order, and you go to the shop and have they got it? Oh, they haven't got it, because back in the day you couldn't search to see where they had it, you just took it on a chance that they would have it, and you
Yeah,
go
yeah.
there, you're like, oh, they haven't got it, and then you got talking and somebody said, oh well, we haven't, but the next town down, they've got a shop, they might have it, and you're like, oh, I'll go there, and it's that I suppose that magical sort of tour to find the
You had to
one
hunt it
album,
down.
the one LP.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's something lost. Like you say, in terms of streaming, and from what I gather, when you hear about like musical artists talking about streaming platforms, as fantastic as it is that it's there, it's on tap, you're in your car, you can listen to anything
Yeah,
by anybody at any time. For the people who actually produce the music, the pennies that they're making for each listen,
yeah.
it's virtually nothing, isn't it?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
it's
that's a shame.
yeah. I mean, it was more, exciting when someone in Brazil bought an album.
Yeah,
Oh, well, what did that happen? And it's pretty cool that people are, you can kind of see the countries that are streaming and where things are streaming. So it's interesting. But you would get more of, when someone bought an album, you would get that sort of response that you mentioned earlier. Someone might send you a note and, oh, I just
yeah.
picked your album over here and wherever. And yeah, it was neat.
So I mean, obviously you mentioned Brazil a lot. Sort of in terms of you being aware of where your music is sort of downloaded, streamed, purchased. I mean, sort of is it more sort of South American, obviously North American, but is it more South American, or is there any way into sort of Europe or any other places in the world that you're aware of?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, it like that's the cool part, I guess, about streaming is that you can. It's literally worldwide.
Right.
So somewhere in Asia, all of a sudden you just, oh, what? And you wonder, how did they ever come across it? The
Yeah,
same
we wonder
thing,
that all the time.
it's as weird as me writing a song about the old man of Mao here in BC, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah,
And uh, or how has so Brazil outstreams Canada for me.
really.
Wow.
Yeah, so why? It's just weird.
Yeah.
It's interesting, and how come? I have no idea.
Yeah.
Someone somewhere found something once and shared it with their friends. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's bizarre. Have you ever heard from anybody else then in England about your song about Mow Cop?
Just when I was kind of doing my research to make sure I had, my sort of facts straight, and I reached out to, I don't have his name at my fingertips here, but the guy running the website, the
Right. Okay.
Mow Cop website.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's incredible. I think it's fantastic. I do. Anything like that that's quite peculiar. And don't get me wrong, there's probably 100 songs out there about different bizarre places around the world.
Yeah, but we find it amazing because it's
Yeah.
local to us and it's topical to us, and the fact that we've done a podcast, obviously for a different reason, but we've done a podcast about it before, and then all of a sudden, like you pop up, it's like, oh my god,
Yeah.
it's just, but that's magical.
It is
That's absolutely magical that a guy that's however many thousands of miles away from Mow Cop can get in touch with and do a podcast with a couple of douchebags that are like 2 minutes away from Mow Cop, and it's incredible, absolutely incredible.
It
Well,
is.
and then in my mind, or I'm assuming everyone there has a copy of the book signed, and
Never heard of the book.
No.
We hadn't heard of the old
Didn't
man
even know Man of Mow.
Mow.
Yeah, forget the book. I didn't even know what the book was written about.
No, I did. At some point, I'll make a pilgrimage to it, and I'll take a photograph of myself next
Yeah.
to it.
You do that. We'll do that.
We'll do that. Yeah.
We'll make a pledge. We'll
Perfect.
do that together. Yeah.
100%. 100%. So, like you say, in terms of your music styles, like you don't feel like you have to be pigeonholed and stick with one particular style. So, the likes of, is it Wendy M? The song Wendy M. That
Yeah.
has got real, and I always sort of said it was an 80s funk sound to it. So, when you said that you like Prince, yeah, I get that.
You get
from
that,
song.
yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that song.
Well, it's about my high school crush, my 1984 crush on Wendy Melvoin, when that album, as you guys know, if you're seeing similar vintage to me, that was huge. You
Yeah.
couldn't. It was just always on. Let's Go Crazy and Purple Rain. Those two songs were like every day.
Yeah.
And so yeah, throughout the 80s, I was a big Prince fan, and after he passed away, like I said, I just started experimenting or playing with those sounds again, and I that song's idea just sort of came to me. The sort of B side to that song was um, called "Celery and Cheese," which was
About celery and cheese, maybe.
yes, well, not really, but um, Wendy and Lisa, who went on to have their own band together from the Revolution. I was big into them as well, and I sort of wrote that song years ago in the 90s when I was listening to them all the time.
You see, I have a question.
Yes.
And I refer you back to what you mentioned earlier in the podcast in terms of Mr. Poirier not knowing that that song was about him. Does Wendy know that that song is about her?
I know that they have well, I guess I don't know. Someone on their Twitter feed knows about it.
Oh, right.
But I was really hoping that they would get really even more behind it. That would be great, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I think they've heard it. Yeah.
Right.
I hope so. I hope so for their sake. And some of your other albums as well, like you say, the soundtrack to an Unmade Western is fantastic. It is exactly what you would expect. If I say that to you, I think you get a pretty good picture in your mind of what it would sound like.
100%. I can imagine what that sound. I apologize. I haven't heard the album, but I can imagine absolutely what that sounds like. And actually, I can't wait for the film to be made.
No, it does need making. But your other art, so other stuff like Another Something, then tell us about that. And like I say, you tend to your style changes a lot over the different albums and the different singles that you've released.
Mm-hmm. That it was definitely mostly in that sort of solo acoustic sort of 60s folk sort of style. There's a few Beatley things in there as well. I
Yeah.
seem I can't really avoid them. Sometimes even the new project I'm sort of working on, I have to consciously try to not be too Beatley. I can't help it.
No.
But that album, yeah, sometimes I think maybe it got a little bit too Dylan-y on me, but
Mhm.
that's where my head was at, and that's where I was performing like. Um, I listened to it recently, and I think it stands up pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is that something that's really difficult, you find really difficult in terms of when you're trying to write new material, is trying to not revisit old ground almost, and trying to almost reinvent yourself every now and then. So I think, well, actually, yeah, I've done a couple of albums and they're quite Beatley, or they're quite sort of folky, or whatever it may be.
Hmm.
Is that quite difficult then to think, like, not to default back to your like, and like that almost like that baseline? It's like, well, actually, I am quite Beatley and I am quite folky. So if I'm trying to write something different, is it difficult to then move away from that?
Uh, Not necessarily difficult. I mean, some of those songs they just um, they then lend themselves to that. That's what they're going to
Right.
be, and that's how I write.
Yeah.
So, um, but you also want like to try to stand out. I think there was that neat time that you hear about, um, sort of Brian Wilson versus the Beatles, they're all
Yeah.
each trying to you know do better than the other, and I still think if the Beatles are the hallmark, they're still the competition. So you're you're trying to do one better than them, and you're trying to do one better than Dylan. uh, if
Well,
that makes sense. I don't know if I'm wording that right, but
No, it
no,
makes
no,
sense.
no. Absolutely, it makes sense. I just, I'm fascinated by sort of, if the lyrics come first, and I don't know, but if ever you got the lyrics that would come first, and then you're looking for the melody, or then you're looking for the soundtrack that sort of sits behind that, are you then really conscious to think, well, actually, I need to make sure that those lyrics fit to a different genre or style than the Beatles or than Hendrix or whoever? And is that how it works? So you think, well, actually, I can't make it sound like that because that would be reverting back to type.
yeah, yeah. I mean, sometimes just boy, that's just I can play in those styles uh, fairly easily and comfortably.
Right.
So, um, can you mix them up differently? If I'm doing something, it's like, how can I bring that '80s Prince influence in?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's hard; they don't fit together. But when you can do it, then that's maybe a little more original sounding, a little bit different
Okay.
um, than just
You see,
if
the
you
the
were.
the the only reason I ask is, so, back in the day, I was a bit of an REM fan, and their they did a song called Night Swimming,
Mhm.
and it's like a melodic sort of, and I'm assuming you know the song,
Yep.
but the story goes is that they were in the studio, and that they came up with the lyrics, and actually the lyrics were due to fit a completely different type of song. So it wouldn't have sounded like Night Swimming, and so they had the lyrics, but then they said it just doesn't quite fit. So what they did was they then just change the music, change the melody, change the style and the feel of the song, and then they just effectively, they had an idea what the lyrics should sound like, but then when they tried to play it, it didn't quite fit. So they then just stripped it completely back and just absolutely just changed the song, and it became very slow, and that melodic sort of beat from Night Swimming, which I love. And I'm trying to imagine what that would sound like in a much more up tempo, and I'm thinking it just doesn't fit, and like that doesn't work. And I just wonder whether, yeah, and that's why I asked the question in terms of how do you know which type of lyric fits which type of melody or beat, or whatever,
Yeah, definitely, and I probably take more time with that now of revisiting a song, and it's not quite there. Let's change a chord
Right.
progression, slow it down, speed it up. Um, yeah, and try to make it fit, like, as you're saying, that wasn't working for them, so they
Right.
needed
Yeah.
to change things up.
Yeah. And I remember, and Michael Stipe said it just wasn't. And I don't think it was him that wrote the lyrics. It was one of the sort of the band members, and I remember just saying it. It just didn't quite fit. It didn't feel like that was the right fit for those lyrics. So therefore, they changed it up, or changed it down. Really made it much more a much slower sort of beat. And then he said, "Wow!" And they had like a mega hit with it, and so on. So just curious as to the process that you go through.
Mm.
Yeah, it's changing the lyrics, or sorry, the music to fit the lyrics. Like I say, I would probably do that more now,
Right.
and not so much. At that point, it's really almost trial and error. Like, this really isn't working,
Yeah.
and this chord here, let's change it to something else, and that just the changing of that chord is going to pull that melody a little bit one way.
Yes.
um you put a minor chord here and there, and it's going to, maybe it sounds a little more somber.
Right.
um
Right.
you change it up like that, where maybe with the more acoustic folk stuff, um it it just fell naturally to where it
Yeah.
wanted to be.
Sure.
And do you think that's because that's what you're comfortable with? It's like a comfy pair of shoes. Is it just you just slip on a little bit more easy?
I think so, yeah. But you don't want to. You have to kind of try to fight against that, right?
No, 100%. 100%. So you said, sorry, Gazza. So you said about you're working on a current project. I'd be interested to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's sort of a mix. I'm probably trying to make a mix of and get into some sort of coherent package of every style of music. I'm a Buddy Holly fan, so that would be
Right.
my early '50s sort of, and take it right up through everything I've liked. Beatles, Dylan, Beach Boys, through the '80s, and Prince, and try to Wilco, um,
Mhm.
and try to get a little bit of all those influences, and try to get them in some sort of package that is me.
Right.
Interesting.
Yeah, no, it's incredible because, as I say, being non-musical, and you talk through your influences, and you say the Beatles, Hendrix, Dylan, Prince, and I'd argue maybe that a couple of those are similar, but there's definitely a couple that are different than each other. So I find it fascinating that somebody who's writing their own material, writing their own music, writing their own lyrics, tries to get those influences in. And it must be really difficult to think, well, I not I'm paying homage to Prince as such, but trying to get the influences of Prince into a song, but then thinking, but I don't really want to discard like my Beatles background or my Hendrix background, and that must be really difficult. And what I want to talk about really is, in terms of releasing an album, is there a flow through the album which would be, well, actually the first two or three maybe would be more Prince influenced, and then you would maybe look at more Hendrix
Hmm.
influenced, or is it just a sort of, not a mishmash? That's a horrible disparaging word, and I apologize. But is it more of a, it's one of them and then it's one of them and one it's them, or is it more of a flow through the album in terms of styles?
I think an album, generally, it's nice if there's some sort of flow
Yeah.
to it as a listener. But then there's some great rambling albums. We talked about the White Album,
Hmm.
um, that is just all over the map, and it's almost jarring sometimes, going from one song to the other. So that can work as well. Generally, I think it's nice if it has a sort of certain flow to it as a listener. But
Yeah.
then there's that little argument against to put something grating, a nice quiet song, and the next one's just a real rocker.
Right. Okay.
Is sometimes wakes the listener up. It's good.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. So what's your end goal out of this? What do you want to achieve out of writing songs and recording music?
Oh, well, if I could make a really good living out of it, that would be excellent.
Yeah.
Woo!
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But it's just something that I just love to come up and play my guitars, and you write songs. That's just part of who I am and what I do, and it has, for 40 years kind of thing. So
Mm,
you just don't stop. You can't help it, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Just forever evolve, I suppose, and just keep going and just keep doing what you love.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And that's the instruments are pretty big part of that. They different instruments make you create in different ways.
Right.
So
Yeah, that makes sense. Talking of instruments, so when you're recording and you're recording the songs and you're laying those tracks down, do you use other musicians there with you, or is it something that you record just by yourself?
uh, sort of a mix. Um, Guitar parts, guitar and bass stuff I'll do usually all myself. If there's something that I know someone can really hit it out of a different angle than I can,
Yeah.
it's nice to get them involved. And then if I'm pretty rudimentary keyboard player. So if I need something a little better, or again, another sort of style that I don't have, um, you get other guys in, and then drummers. I I did drum on the songs on Unmade Western. There's only two of them with drumming on them,
Right.
and if it's straightforward, maybe I can do it, but it's usually probably a good idea to get a real drummer involved.
Right. I've got a question, and I've been wanting to ask it for a while, and I'm going to tee you up now just to celebrate you and what you've done, because I asked what was the time that you bombed and it was horrendous. What I want to ask is, like, what's your favorite experience, either being on stage or being in a studio or being
Mm.
with band members, or like, not your crowning moment in terms of downloads or sales, but for you, the bit that thinks, yeah, if someone says to you, "What does music mean to me?" What was that one bit, that one either performance or that one
Mm.
studio session or whatever it may be, that you think, yes, that's it?
Well, it's sort of two things, I guess. Really, I love recording and studio work best of all. I just
Yeah,
like that creative side of it, and writing the songs, recording them, working on them. Um, but I mean, that old band, I love playing with those guys,
yeah,
and there's that feeling, and I often think back, oh, why didn't we do that song? And man, we would have nailed that. We should have,
yeah.
and I think about, yeah, just those times with those guys were a lot of fun.
Well,
I bet it must be fantastic to be part of a band. Well, I love that. So you see, we aren't musical. Yes, we have been in a band called Philosophical Spiderman. Yes, we have been in a band called Violent Disorder. Yes, we were absolutely terrible. The lyrics were appalling. Nobody could play any of the instruments, and nothing was worth listening to. But I can tell you this: it was a hell of a lot of fun, wasn't it?
oh, look, as you say, Adam, would you call it music? I'm
No,
not
I
so
wouldn't.
sure.
I wouldn't. White noise at best.
Yeah, white noise at best, but that sense of camaraderie, the sense of just we're in it, and yeah, and look, I'm a big sportsman, and played in lots of sports with teammates and stuff, and that camaraderie that you get is phenomenal. So I was just curious to know, yeah, and in a way, I'm sort of pleased. And don't get me wrong, your solo stuff, that your acoustic solo stuff is fantastic. But for you to say it's just like, almost like, let's just get the guys back together, let's get the band back together, and we'll just do that one set, that one, all the songs that over the years we felt, I really wish we'd have done that, or we could have done that, or we should have done that. Just write them down, and then get the old band back together, find a venue, and just go, we're just going to do these songs. If we end up playing to one man and his dog, I don't really care, but we're just going to feel it, love it, enjoy it, and that's the best that we can possibly be. And for me, that camaraderie is second to none.
Indeed, indeed. And just in terms of music, like Gaz says, we're around about the hour mark now, which is where we tend to bring it to a close. So I listened to the Old Man and Mao, I listened to Mr. Poirier, and to be honest with you, my little lad JJ absolutely loves the Old Man and Mao. He will dance around, he dances around the front room, listen to it. It's fantastic. But it's a song that follows it. that I love, Like Flowers, I think that is a fantastic song, and I've added it to one of my playlists, so it will get regularly listened to in this household.
Awesome. Thank
Absolutely
you.
brilliant song, dude. It's fantastic,
Thank you.
and I was trying to think what it was reminiscent to because it wasn't as Beatlesy as the rest of the other stuff, but it has almost. It reminded me of some of the indie stuff of the early, maybe early to late 90s, maybe that sort of time. But yeah, just the ballads that some of those guys have put out. Absolutely love that song. So thank you very much for that entering into my
Yeah.
life. So
Perfect. Awesome.
no, pleasure, absolute pleasure. Honestly, I really enjoyed listening to it. I really enjoyed meeting you as well today, Trevor. So we wrap it up around about the hour mark. So have you got one final thought you'd like to chuck out to our listeners? Tell them where they can find your music, etc.
Well, there's trevorcaswell.com, which is probably about due for a real refresh. But yeah, Trevor Caswell on Spotify, Apple Music, any of the streaming services that you use. That's probably the best way to check stuff out.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Gaza, what are your thoughts for today?
Oh, look, as I said right at the start, I love getting guests onto our podcast, people that we haven't had before, and just I found the whole story fascinating. That Trevor can write a story from thousands of miles away about a place that's 5 minutes down the road from where we are. But not just that, just listening to a story, listening to the influences he's had, and how he goes about his storytelling and his songwriting, and absolutely fascinating. Like I said, I'd love to be more musical. I love music. I can't sing. I can't play an instrument. But I would love to be just that creative spark. So, Trevor, I just want to thank you really just for the insight into your story, into your journey, and all I can say is just keep doing what you're doing, and let's just hope that the people in South America keep downloading your music, and long may it continue.
Yeah, absolutely. God bless them Brazilians.
Yep, for sure. There you go.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Oh no, absolute pleasure. And you've got two fans over here, like I say. It blows our mind. It does absolutely blow our mind that we got that song out there, the Old Man I'm Out, and it's taken me all these years to find it.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, absolutely fantastic. Thank you very much for your time. We wish you all the best with all the music that you're going to release in the future, and we will be keeping a keen eye out for it. If you ever want to come on this podcast again and promote whatever music you are recording or doing at the time, you are more than welcome. So thank you
Awesome.
very much for joining us.
Well,
And
thanks again.
oh, absolute pleasure. And for our listeners, we'll catch you all again next week when we will be talking about something completely different again.